Good evening. Tonight is Monday, April 13th. This is a regular meeting of the Minnetonka City Council. I'll call this meeting to order. Those of you who are able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton.
Here.
Maxwell. Here. Wilburn.
Here.
Calvert.
Here.
Rameli.
Here.
Coakley. Shack.
Here. All right. We have approval of the agenda, item 4. Mr. Funk.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. 2 items for your consideration for the agenda this evening. The first one is related to item 11A, agreement with the Metropolitan Council for the Dominic Drive Freight Rail Crossing. There's an agreement that was inadvertently left out of the original distribution of the packet, so that agreement is there for your purview. And then also there's some additional background information regarding this item also has been added. And then the second item for your consideration is related to item 14C, which is a conditional use permit for licensed retail care facilities at 2000 Hopkins Crossroad. Neighborhood feedback was received after publication of the report, and that feedback has been added for your consideration. With that, Mayor and Council, the recommended action is to motion to approve the agenda as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Council? Councilmember Foster Bolton
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
and Councilmember Calvert. I'll second. Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Foster Bolton, a second by Councilmember Calvert. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Rameli.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. So we've got a few special matters tonight, and before we get on to those, I just want to remind folks. Oh, excuse me. I'm so excited for the special matters. Which I really am, sincerely. I jumped the gun a little bit. We have first item 5, which is approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes, 5A, the March 23rd, 2026 regular meeting minutes. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the March 23rd, 2026 regular meeting minutes.
Thank you. And a second, Councilmember Wilburn.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert, a second by Councilmember Wilburn. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton.
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Rameli.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes, motion carries. All right, now for special matters. And before we do that, just a reminder, if anybody's here on item 7 or regarding anything in item 13, that they should, which is our public hearings, we have cards out in the lobby for you to sign up to speak. And regarding item 8, those items, we limit this conversation to 3 minutes, not conversation, the comments to 3 minutes. So go ahead and fill those out if you would like to speak at tonight's meeting on either of those items. All right, special matters. So we're going to do a couple things first, and then we'll get to the highlights. So first up, we have 6A, which is the Arab American Heritage Month proclamation, and I believe I have asked Councilmember Rameli to read that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Arab American Heritage Month was first recognized at the national level in April of 2021, marking an historic acknowledgement of the contributions and presence of Arab Americans across the United States. And whereas Arab Americans have been an integral part of the American story, contributing richly to our nation's history, culture, economy, and public life through achievements in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, the arts, and more. And whereas Arab Americans have often faced discrimination, bias, and stereotyping, yet they continue to build strong communities, engage in public service, and advocate for justice, equity, and inclusion. And whereas the Arab American community is composed of a diverse group of individuals representing a variety of cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and national backgrounds. And whereas Arab American Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the history, contributions, resilience, and rich cultural traditions of Arab Americans and to foster deeper understanding and unity among all residents of Minnetonka. And whereas recognizing Arab American Heritage Month reaffirms our shared commitment to diversity, equity, and the full inclusion of all communities in our civic life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Minnetonka City Council does hereby declare the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month in the city of Minnetonka.
Thank you, Councilmember Neely. And our next item is 6B, which is the Earth Day proclamation. And I have asked Councilmember Calvert to read that because Earth Day is a very special day for her. So she gets first dibs on that one. Councilmember
It's
Calvert.
my, Earth Day is my wedding anniversary. So, thank you for letting me read this one. And I just want to say, in celebration of Earth Day, seeing the many people in the audience that are here for our Sustainability Awards, it literally warms my heart. So thank you for coming and for all you're doing in our community to make the world a better place. Whereas Earth Day, established in 1970, constitutes an opportunity for environmental stewardship commitments, sustainability efforts, and a commitment to an Earth Day proclamation. And whereas the official 2026 Earth Day theme is Our Power, Our Planet, which is a commitment to stewardship, resilience, and shared accountability. It invites every individual, community, and sector to exercise their power in service of the planet we all depend on. Whereas environmental progress is sustained by the daily decisions of communities, educators, workers, innovators, and families who understand that protecting the places they live and work is both a responsibility and a long-term investment. Whereas the global community faces extraordinary environmental challenges such as climate change, global health issues, food and water shortages, degradation of ecosystems, inequity, and poverty, and whereas all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, income, occupation, age, country of origin, or geography, have a right to a safe, healthy, sustainable environment with economic opportunities. And whereas it is known that the citizens, businesses, and organizations of the global community continue implementing solutions that strengthen energy reliability, conserve resources, and improve climate resilience. And now, therefore be it resolved, the Minnetonka City Council hereby pledges this Earth Day, Tuesday, April 22nd, 2026, to continue prioritizing environmental stewardship through strategic initiatives in Minnetonka, Minnesota, and to empower all community members to individually participate.
Thank you, Councilmember Calvert. And then finally, in continuing in that spirit, we have the Arbor Day proclamation, which I've asked Councilmember Maxwell to please read. Councilmember Maxwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas our trees and forests brighten Minnetonka's future by creating jobs, providing areas for quiet contemplation, increasing property values, and making our city more livable. And whereas our trees and forests enrich society by building strong community ties, reducing crime, providing common meeting spaces and places to recreate. And whereas our trees and forests strengthen our lives by providing lumber for building homes, fiber for producing paper, foliage for decorating, and food for eating. And whereas our trees and forests enhance our environment by moderating climate, improving air and water quality, conserving water and energy, sheltering wildlife, and benefiting pollinators. And whereas each year on the last Friday in April, volunteers and city staff plant trees to invigorate our community and all the natural resources they represent, and dedicate themselves to the continued health of our city's urban and community forest. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Minnetonka City Council hereby proclaims Friday, April 24th, 2026 as Arbor Day, and the month of May as Arbor Month in the city of Minnetonka.
Thank you, Councilmember Maxwell. All right, moving on to 6D, which is the reason so many of you are here and the reason we're just so proud. So we are going to present plaques to the Sustainable Minnetonka Award winners. And I want to thank the Sustainability Commission, and we've got our chair and our vice chair here, Brian and Ashley, so happy to have them. And we're going to talk about these wonderful nominees and then ultimately the award winners here. And I think I have control of this PowerPoint, so I'm going to try to juggle this here. So first, so this program began in 2022, and with the idea, with the help of our Sustainability Commission, the awards that projects in the Minnetonka community that promote resilience by mitigating and adapting to Minnesota's changing climate, protect and enhance natural environment, and to promote adoption of sustainability and conservation best practices. So we're taking time to highlight some of the great large-scale projects and the smaller scale commitments that have been taken on in this community by volunteers and share the success stories. What I will say is, since 2022, this has really blossomed, this program. So it's very cool to see so many people nominated and interested, and I'm sure it's very heartening to the Sustainability Commission, although probably harder to decide on the winners, but that's a good problem to have. So in 2026, we had 17 applicants in the following categories: energy, waste reduction, landscape, water, young adult, 16 to 25, and then a new category, youth, under 16 years old. And so that was a fun thing to get some of these younger folks nominated. So on March 17th, the Sustainability Commission reviewed the projects and voted for nominee and special recognition recipients. Tonight we'll present the nominee and special recognition awards to the 2026 applicants. So applicants will have you walk up to collect your award after your project has been announced, and our Sustainability Commissioners here will help get those to you. And then because we have so many great projects, we're going to hold applause until the end. I know that might be hard, but we're going to try our best. All right, so in the Energy Awards category, our nominated award, congratulations to Vale Apartments that installed 10 electric vehicle charging stations at their multifamily property. Congratulations to the Ridgedale Regional Center, Hennepin County. They installed 309 kilowatts of solar. That's 562 solar panels at Ridgedale Regional Center. And congratulations to Peter Lund and Jean Samuelson, who installed solar panels and a dual fuel air source heat pump in their home, and they're not able to be here tonight. And congratulations to Jim and Ann Kaloides, who installed a dual fuel air source heat pump and subscribed to community solar credits. And another one in the energy category, congratulations to Eric and Katie Winter, who installed geothermal for heating and cooling and electric water heater. And the Special Recognition Award goes to, congratulations to Paul Stork and Sharon Papinek Stork, who installed geothermal, solar panels, solar tube lighting. They drive an electric vehicle and they winterize their home. And I'm just going to highlight this bathroom photo here, if you can see this. This is a solar light that they've, I can't pretend to know how it works, but I thought it was very cool to read about. So congratulations to those folks. Here's what we're going to do. We'll take applause on that category now. Well done. All right, moving on to the Waste Reduction Awards category. And waste reduction, okay, the Special Recognition Award winner goes to Abbott Minnetonka Campus, increased waste diversion from landfill from 45% in 2018 to 89% in 2025 through recycling, collection, and education efforts. So that makes a big difference and such an inspiration. So well done. That's the Special Recognition Award. Yeah. So I really like that this can really inspire other businesses in the community. So hopefully, all right. We got a second Special Recognition Award. Julie, you were right. Okay. Congratulations. This is also a very, very cool project. Residents of Ridgepoint, a group of Ridgepoint residents weave plastic bags into sleeping mats for people experiencing homelessness. Over 17,000 plastic bags have been repurposed. And just hold that mat up there. So excellent, and this group is, this is a real team effort. So congratulations to the Ridgepoint folks. Yes.
Mayor,
All right.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
if the Ridgepoint residents can just raise their hands of who's all here, because it's quite a big group,
Big
that
group,
represents
yeah.
Ridgepoint.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. The Landscape Awards category. And these ones are the visually really interesting ones. Okay, so nominee award. Congratulations to Catherine Melkety and David Ingelstead, who improved landscaping and stormwater capture by installing permeable pavement and stormwater swale and native pollinator habitat with over 450 native species. They're unable to be here tonight. The next landscaping category, this is the Special Recognition Award, goes to Peter and Melissa Gausman. And they converted all their turf grass into native landscaping since 2020. They planted over 120 native species and use locally made mulch from Public Works. And I believe I had the pleasure of seeing this property in the fall, and it is really inspiring. Very cool. So we'll give them a round of applause. If you have an opportunity to see this one, I highly recommend it. All right, Water Awards category. Oh, I'm stuck. Oh, here we go. Okay, the first nominee award goes to Water's Edge Homeowners Association. They united the entire association to fully restore their shoreline by removing buckthorn, installing shoreline buffers, and plantings of over 3,000 native plants. So take a look at that. Well done. If there's folks here, come and get your award. Our next Water Nominee Award category award. Congratulations to Andrew Schneider and Lauren DeBosch. They installed rain garden for stormwater infiltration and planted over 85 native plants. And we have a nominee award in this category to Sandy and Mike Rooswald, who installed a native shoreline buffer along their property to repair an eroding shoreline and planted over 900 native plants. Look at that. These ones are just beautiful, all of you. Well done. All right, and the Special Recognition Award goes to the Glen Atrium Condominium Association. Association members repaired their pond's shoreline by removing buckthorn, installing a shoreline buffer, and restoring the area to multi-use park-like oasis for the association members and neighbors. They installed over 400 native plants and a project education plaque. Well done. Look at that. Wow. I know we have a big group here, so come on up and get your award, or if you prefer, just raise your hand and show that you're part of that group. Well done, folks. And not to diminish the hard work of all of these adults, but the really cool thing is to see the inspired young people as well. We'll let them get this photo here. Thank you. So we have our young adult category. And the special recognition award goes to the Vantage program, the DEMCON team. They collaborated with DEMCON to complete a research project analyzing the feasibility of recycling polycoated fiber, PCF, packaging in the United States. So this is a very cool project. Well done. All right, and now to the Youth Awards category. So we've got a couple youth awards. We've got a special recognition award for Shu Peng. Shu is a 3rd grader in Minnetonka, and he researched how ice rinks use energy and water and wrote a paper about that. He created a tri-board to teach students and families about hockey's environmental impact and ideas to make hockey more sustainable. So look at that cool thing. Well done, Shu. We're really proud to have you here, and thanks for doing that project. And I bet you our public works people might zoom in on your papers there. All right, and we have another very impressive special recognition award. This goes to Winston Haig. Winston, a Minnetonka student, adopted 8 local storm drains. He clears leaves, grass clippings, litter, and fine sediment from the drains, and he's been doing this since 2022, and he's completed his full cleanup route over 18 times, and and look at his siblings are here with him, and his friends, he brings them along, and he also shares what he's doing with curious neighbors and classmates, so hopefully inspiring other people to adopt the drain. So well done, Winston. And thanks to his siblings too, but you can share all the glory tonight. So again, this is it's so inspiring, really. I think it might sound trite because I've said it a lot, but it really does inspire me, and I think all my colleagues and everybody here to do a little bit that they can. And as the awards just get bigger and bigger every year, I think it's having the impact that we intended. So thank you all. All right, and you're free to stick around, but we also know that you probably aren't interested in doing that, so we'll just take just a minute to let folks exit.
If they want any pictures with the awards, Mayor, they can gather where they were in the back room.
Yes,
So.
and you can go back to that back room if you want photos. Okay, we will keep moving once Mr. Funk gets back to his seat because he's next up. All right. Item 7 is reports from city manager and council members. Mr. Funk.
Nominated Minnetonka as a Tree City, USA City for the 32nd year in a row. So really good congratulations to the city and all of our efforts. And in that same vein, the city annual tree sale is occurring, and that will start on May 4th. And so anyone that's interested in participating in our annual tree sale, that preview is live, so you can go to our website, see the variety of trees, and get ready to purchase those trees. This has been a long-standing practice, and I think it goes to our city's natural resources. We've been talking about that tonight in our proclamations, and just really us being a tree city and a tree canopy city. And it's always good to note that the city of Minnetonka, we plant more trees every year than that comes out in the city. And so we're always trying to grow our tree canopy. Second then is spring is in the air, and maybe in the next half hour, storms are going to be in the air, but certainly with spring in the air, our pickleball courts are opening up at Lone Lake Park, our tennis nets are going up, our ball fields are getting ready, so a real shout out to our public works staff, really getting all of our facilities ready for the spring activities and those summer activities. I'm going to switch gears then and recognize a couple of our staff members here at the city. First, our Minnetonka building official, Dale Gronberg. Council, I think you may be aware of this, but he was recently recognized by his peers with an award for excellence by the State's Association of Building Officials. Dale was recognized for his loyalty, dependability, and integrity. And quoted, according to the nomination, Dale's fierce loyalty shows in his positive relationships both internally and externally. Internally, his colleagues turn to him in difficult situations and ask for his advice, in which he easily provides. He also is dedicated to being at work at all times, ready to answer anything that comes his way. Mr. Gronberg also has helped oversee Minnetonka's largest construction period since the 1990s, with thousands of new housing units, many office reuse facility projects, and extremely complex enforcement cases. This award also notes Dale's integrity, which he demonstrates every single day. His ability to get code compliance and not to alienate contractors is unmatched. Mr. Gronberg wants and does his best to make sure those around him thrive. This is all done with his leadership. So we congratulate Mr. Gronberg for his award, and it's well deserved. Next, I want to just recognize a couple of our staff members in Natural Resources who also recently completed their certifications. So 3 of our Natural Resources staff reached professional milestones. Ava Gorius and Tessa Lepley became certified arborists through the International Society of Arboriculture. And then our Assistant City Forester, Chloe Bonek, earned her certification Urban Forest Professional Credential, advancing toward board certified Master Arborist. There's a lot of words in that. And then spring extravaganza. We haven't had a meeting for a couple weeks, but Easter was a couple weeks ago. Our park staff and rec staff hosted this event every year, and this year we had more than 500 community members enjoy an egg scavenger hunt and all the festivities that along with that. So really appreciate our staff, one of our many fun outreach events that we've had, and lots of great feedback on that as well. Second to last is then the Minnetonka Fire Department is hosting an event regarding sensory disorders with sensory disorders in mind. The fire station at that time will have no lights and no sirens, and those that benefit from reduced noise, lower lighting, and a calm environment are invited. We've been doing this now for a couple years, and that event will be held on Saturday, April 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at our Central Fire Station right here on our City Hall campus. A lot of fun things for young adults to enjoy, such as our public safety vehicles, inflatable slides. Our firefighters, of course, will be around, and lots of treats as well. And then last, Council, I'm going to turn your attention to our front row. We have some civil engineering students from the University of Minnesota here, and I apologize, hopefully I get your names correct. Riley Richland, Wesley Barnhart, Julia Peterson, and Conrad Rodriguez are attending tonight. They are enrolled in a project management and engineering economics with their final project involving developing a report on a municipal project, and they've chosen the city of Minnetonka. So they've reached out working with Mr. Manchester and our staff, and they're researching and evaluating our Minnetonka Boulevard Trail. And so part of the research involves attending a council meeting, and so they're here tonight to observe. So we welcome them and appreciate their attendance and working with our staff. So with that, Mayor, Council, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Council. All right. Well, it's been, it's been spring break and lots of meeting, a little bit of a pause after a marathon first part of the year, that's for sure. So I think a welcome break for everybody. I just want to mention, I just have one small thing I'd like to mention, and it seems to just be more enhanced every day, but the work at Big Willow Park and the Burwell House and the gazebo area has been really remarkable. I think that is something that the community appreciates, seeing some of the invasives removed and making room for our native trees that we're really trying to enhance and keep healthy. So really impressed as we see that project come to fruition. So thank you, Mr. Manchester and your team. All right, without anything else, we'll move on to item 8, which is citizens wishing to discuss matters not on the agenda. And I've got one card here. Miranda, there's no others. Couple here. I thought I saw some in your hand, so okay. So we will start with, we're just going to go in order if I have them here. So we'll go first with Jonathan Kent, second with Nate Thornton, and third with Kevin Ringhofer. So Jonathan Kent, come on up, and then just a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for hearing me out. And my name is Jonathan. I live at 14513 Moonlight Hill Road. So I wanted to bring up a matter suggestion that I believe I made in a previous meeting, and either way, would like to uplift it. And for that matter, have discussed it with other fellow residents of the city who seem enthused by the idea. But basically, while city council meetings are a great forum to learn about what's happening, and there are resources online, and we do have an avenue to have discussion, it's not really discussion, it's more of one-way communication and understand why that is in place. I'm calling on the council to host a town hall, and to do so on, I'll say, quarterly basis, at least yearly, maybe semi-annually. However you want to do it, having at least one and seeing how it goes might be a good place to start. And rationale for that being, case in point, if I ask you a question right here, you're not allowed to answer it. And if I say something you don't like, you can't respond to it. Or even if you like it, I have no idea of knowing that unless you follow up. And while there are telephones and email and ways of meeting up outside of this, I think in the spirit of building more community, especially in these times, having a town hall would be great. And I don't really see a reason why we shouldn't have one. So I welcome hearing otherwise. And this is not at all to tell the city how to manage its affairs, but more so to expand upon and facilitate active dialogue. And then related to this point, as you've heard from several of us many times before, with recent matters with Metro Surge, I think having a dedicated town hall or something similar that is almost solely devoted to that subject matter, I think would be very helpful. And in addition to sharing information, taking back directly feedback from others, and hopefully people beyond myself and others in the room who have spoken before. And with that, I'd like to add one suggestion of mine, and I think there are others who might be interested in seeing this as well on the constituent side. With regard to flock cameras in this city, or the license plate readers, I did a little bit of studying on the matter, and it's something that I still need to learn a lot about. And per public information, it looks like our city has about a dozen, and I am open to learning more as to their function. And then, as local news has reported in the Star Tribune, Sun Sailor, and other places, many cities are discussing whether and how to use these cameras. Some are opting to rein in how they're used, especially given federal involvement and oversight. Flock claims that they're not working with ICE, and I think it's something that's worth looking into. And what I would quickly plug is I would love to hear from the police department how they're using the cameras, why, and what they're doing to assure that they're following procedures and protecting our citizens. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Nate Thornton.
Resident Minnetonka. I'd like to second Jonathan's ask about the flock cameras. I think, Deb, you've made this very clear that ICE is here about the elections. Our immigrant neighbors were just the start, and I know being bold is tough to do nowadays, but I think a small action, disabling the cameras for 120 days. The police chief has admitted that he doesn't know where the data goes. These cameras are easily hackable. As a software engineer, I've looked into this and can confirm that basically anyone, even though the feds have $75 million, basically anyone can start profiling us. So simple ask, perhaps a study session topic, have the police chief look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. And Kevin Ringhofer. Somebody have their microphone on back there?
Is that better? Oop. Okay. All right. Lean into one. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to address you. I would like to talk a little bit more on provide an update on extending the pre-eviction notice. I've been kind of trying to gather more information about it. Got another report that to get rental assistance took like 2.5 weeks, and that was a group that apparently was working directly with his house, and it still took 2.5 weeks for them to get their rental assistance. Learning some other nuances about eviction. It seems like people have a connection with mutual aid groups, and they're kind of going to the mutual aid groups first in order to get their assistance. But a couple other things might be happening. Renters may be actually vacating their apartment and avoiding the eviction proceedings. And actually, some organizations are even recommending that they leave versus going through the eviction proceedings, not only because it's costly and complicated, but if evicted, it may be very difficult to get another place. And so vacating seems to be the lesser of two evils. Extending the pre-eviction notice could help that, allowing people more time to either gather their rent or get their assistance. And I'd be willing to talk with any of you further about the implications. As I said, I'm continuing to kind of gather information and learn about this. But it seems evident that necessarily we don't want to wait for evictions to happen, because that's already going to be something that's going to be difficult to overcome for the renters. And we may not see it if people are choosing to leave. I think one thing could be is improving the accessibility of rental assistance from the city could also help, and it may give some relief to mutual aid groups that are trying to sustain the aid they have and that's needed. It's just going to be difficult to say for some of these mutual aid groups that have popped up in churches in different areas how long they're going to be able to continue to raise money. I want to thank you for making the immigration resources much more prominent on the website. That's very helpful. I did notice one thing. I did not see his house listed as a housing resource. So maybe listing them right there on the website may be a way to kind of improve the accessibility. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ringhofer. All right, so I forgot to do my spiel. I'm all out of sorts. I've had so much talking to do today, but it's customary for us to receive the information, follow up with staff, and follow up with any comments that were received to the extent that that's prudent. All right, so moving on, bids and purchases, we have none. Item 10, the consent agenda. Items requiring a majority of vote. Items are placed on the consent agenda that are considered routine in nature, and we are able to approve those in one vote. If anybody would like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further questions or discussions, they may do that either from the council or from the audience. we have 2 items tonight. Consent agenda item 10A, a 12-month extension of the approvals for Minnetonka Flats, a 4-lot subdivision with floodplain alteration at 15917 Minnetonka Boulevard. And item 10B, items concerning the Minnetonka School District, Independent School District 276 parking lot expansion at the Minnetonka High School campus located at 18407 Delton Avenue. Are there any items that need to be pulled? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve. Councilmember Calvert?
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of consent agenda items 10A and 10B.
And a second? Councilmember Romalee.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert, a second by Councilmember Romalee. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Romalee,
Yes.
Shack.
Yes, motion carries. All right, consent agenda item 11. These, likewise, these are also considered routine in nature, but they require 5 votes. We have 1 item tonight, and again, anybody can pull this item if they would like. In agreement with the Metropolitan Council for the Dominic Drive Freight Rail Crossing. Councilmember Foster Bolt.
I'd like to pull it.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So I know that the addendum explained a lot in this, but I just wanted to get some things clear about it. So it was determined that these are quiet zones, right? And so we have to upgrade the equipment to maintain it being quiet, and it became a quiet zone in 2006. Do you know why? I mean, obviously it's noisy, but I mean, were there complaints or?
Mr. Manchester?
Sure, Councilmember Foster Bolton, and Mayor and Council. You know, at the time, it was right before I was here. Yes, I mean, there's a number of residents that don't want to hear the train horn, so the quiet zone, you know, a train horn can potentially be heard up to 2 miles. The radius in this area, that would be about 1,800 residents, and so this is just one of 3. So at the time in 2006, the city looked at all their crossings and kind of responded to some of the things they've been hearing over the years. So yes, we had heard from residents at that time.
Thanks. And it said that there are trains crossing between 2 and 4 times a day, like all hours of the day, 24 hours?
Mr. Manchester?
Sure, Mayor and Councilmember Foster Bolton and Council. I didn't grab the times ahead of time, but they would be able to run trains at any time throughout the day. The city doesn't regulate that. You know, as of currently, there's 2 to 4 trains, but in the future, if, you know, freight were to increase for any reason, you know, that number could certainly increase, but they would have the ability to run at all hours.
I have a few more, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So $500,000 seems like a lot of money. Can we get by cheaper?
Mr. Manchester?
Sure, that's a great question. Councilmember Foster Bolton, Mayor and Council, we certainly looked at that. If we could, we would certainly propose that. So when we looked at this project, you know, this was previously owned by the Twin Cities Rail. It turned over to Met Council recently. They gave us a number. They have a contractor, they do the work, and so we essentially pay them for the work. We did have a consultant look at it on our end who does this a lot to make sure that the price was in line. You know, some of the work that's involved is they do need to build a small, you know, little house to house servers and electrical equipment. What essentially is missing is the constant warning time. And so the other 2 crossings, this one has never had the constant warning time, and they've never required it until recently, which we knew they would at some point in the future, but it wasn't necessary per the feds, and so they didn't require it, so we didn't add it. But it requires us running conduit quite a ways on the line as well. And so essentially what the constant warning time does is it picks up the speed of a train and the distance away, and so it regulates the crossing automatically. So we can control the crossing on the street, so it's not too long, it's not too short. but it does need to span quite a ways to make that work. There's concrete work required. It does replace all the crossings at it. So it's about half labor, and it's about half materials. We did get a breakdown on the labor too, just to make sure that that was in line as well. But since there's such an extensive amount of work with the conduit and the other things, as well as the price of the equipment, that's why it gets to be so expensive. The contract is for $430. We did put a contingency in here. And then we put some admin, just in case we need to check something with our rail consultant, just to make sure the city's comfortable with everything. They only bill us for what's actually done at that time too. So we don't, if they don't spend the full amount, we don't pay that full amount.
Anything else?
Just a quick question.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Why don't
You were still, yeah, if you're still.
I think that's, it's not an option to say no unless we get rid of the quiet zone. Like, it's not an option to say, we're not going to do this.
Sure, Councilmember Foster Bolton. The only option would be to start blowing the horn again if we don't do it, essentially, yes.
Councilmember Romali.
Just a quick question. How much have we had to expend in maintenance in this over the 20 years since we've had the quiet zone?
Good question, Councilmember Romali. Essentially, for this quiet zone, we haven't touched it since 2006. So at the time it was instated, we didn't have to spend anything at that time either. We were in a position where we were approved, so we haven't spent money on this one. We have spent money on the others. Even building this initially, it didn't cost the city anything at that time. We were already set up. So when we built the other two at Oakland and Crosby, we spent around $230,000 in 2006. And then we've done upgrades to the other two with Crosby. The Crosby Road project, we did an upgrade, and then Oakland we did last year, actually.
Thank you. As somebody, just a quick comment, as somebody who lives in proximity or good hearing distance from a train, it's really nice when we instated those, or Wayzata did for my case, and you no longer had to hear train whistles at 2 and 4 and 6 in the morning. So, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Council, anything else? I'll reiterate what Councilmember Romali said. I grew up about a mile from two crossings, and we knew we were a mile from two crossings. I mean, you don't think about how loud that is until the whistles are blowing. It's really significant. So I think it would be a big lifestyle change for our residents to not have the quiet zones. That's my 2 cents. It seems like a lot of money, but it's probably, for the lifestyle impact that it creates, money well spent. So with that, I would take a motion for consent agenda item 11A. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just say I just rode on a train from St. Paul to Seattle and back, and I agree. If I lived in some of those communities where the whistles were blowing, it would be a total bummer. So I'd like to move, make the motion to authorize the mayor and the city manager to execute an agreement with the Met Council, subject to non-material changes as approved by the city engineer and city attorney, amend the CIP, and authorize the city engineer to expend the allocated funds for project costs without further council approval, provided the total project costs do not exceed the project budget of $500,000.
And a second. Councilmember Romali.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert, a second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Romali,
Yes.
Shack.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Councilmember Foster Bolton. I thought those were good questions, and it does bear consideration. So, all right, moving on to introduction of ordinances. 12, we have none. Item 13, which is public hearings, and we have a few of those. We'll get started with 13A, which is a temporary on-sale liquor license for Boom Island Brewing Company, LLC at 5959 Baker Road. Ms. Wishnack.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. This is a temporary license for what they're hosting on May 16th, which is a Saturday. They're doing a free outdoor event. It does involve live music, some food trucks, as well as a market, a medieval themed market. And then finally, what's called the Fighting Nights, which is a kind of a, and I'm going to describe it more as a theater production, probably that's the best way I can describe it, where people are actually involved in a fight of swords and activities. Some of the things I do in my job are so different than other things that people do. So anyway, the city code does have a prohibition of having alcohol and a sporting event together, unless the council specifically relieves them from that that provision. So we are recommending approval. They did have the event last year. There were no issues. There were no situations that occurred. So we're comfortable moving ahead with the recommendation of approval. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Wishnak. Council, any questions? Okay, well then this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. I'll invite the applicant to come up if you want to tell us about your event. State your name and address, please.
Thank you, everyone. Mayor, council members. I'm Laura McCauley with Boom Island Brewing. I actually live in Shakopee.
That's okay. We've got your
Okay.
business address. That's fine.
Yes, we're on Baker Road, 5959. We are hosting our second annual Nights and Pints event. It is a medieval style event, goes all day long, noon till we close at 11 that day. We will have I think I've got 7 medieval style vendors that'll be participating in our Ye Old Market. And then from 3 to 6, we will have our Fighting Nights. It is more of a production than a sports event, if I may. And they are fully armored, extremely stringent on their safety protocols as well for the participants, as well as the guests that are viewing the experience. And then we'll have themed beverages and food trucks, of course. And then in the evening, the always entertaining Gus the Bardic Troubadour will be playing in the tap room as well. So lots of fun to be had. It is a free event to attend. And as always, we will follow all of the necessary ordinances and safety procedures.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we wish you a successful event.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this item? One last call. Anybody? No? I'll close the public hearing. And council, any comments, or I would take a motion? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you. It's an awesome event. Everyone should go. It's a local business. I love supporting them. So thanks for putting that fun event together. And I just wanted to also say that to our visitors, for our civil engineer visitors, boy, you picked a good meeting. This is not one that's going to go till midnight. So I'd like to make the motion to grant the temporary liquor license to Boom Island Brewing with relief from section 600.071. And I hope that doesn't make the city attorney nervous.
Councilmember Romali.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert, second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Romali?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes, motion carries. We'll have a blast. I'm going to be out of town, otherwise I would be there. It sounds like a lot of fun. All right. Next item is item 13B, an easement vacation for Carlson's Linner Road addition at 1923 and 1939 Linner Road. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As you noted, this is an easement vacation request. Staff is recommending that the council approve this vacation. At your last meeting, the council approved preliminary and final plats for what was essentially a lot line adjustment. I've tried to show the adjustment in that dash line on the left. We moved from the solid line down to the dash line. That plat did establish new drainage and utility easements along the new lot line. This evening, the council is requested to vacate the easements on that old and now vanished lot line. Staff does support the vacation, again, because the dedication of new easements occurred as part of the plat. And so with that, I would turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. This seems pretty straightforward, but council, any questions? Okay, we do have to open a public hearing on this. And I would ask, I know that we have the applicant on the line. I'm not sure, the notes say they're only here if there's questions, so we'll take that at heed. And anybody in the audience wish to speak on this item? Anybody? Okay, final call, closing the public hearing. And council, any comments? Otherwise, we would take a motion on this. Councilmember Wilburn.
I will move that we adopt the resolution approving an easement vacation of Carlson's Linner Road addition at 1923 and 1939 Linner Road.
Thank you. Councilmember Maxwell.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Maxwell. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Romaley,
Yes.
Shack.
Yes, motion carries. All right, 13C, a preliminary and final plat of Oakland Estates Second Edition and an easement vacation for a 2-lot subdivision at 1915 and 1929 Oakland Road. Ms. Thomas.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. As you noted, there's 2 actions being requested this evening. First is approval of those plats, and then second, an easement vacation, and staff is recommending the council approve both of those requests. This site is comprised of 2 lots totaling roughly 3.5 acres. The south lot contains a single-family home, while the northerly lot is currently vacant. And while development on both of those lots is certainly constrained by the wetland area that you can see on the north, I would say 2/3 of the property, both of those lots are legally buildable lots of record in their current configuration. Lake West Development has submitted an application, again, to essentially adjust the lot line between those 2 lots. The solid line, common line, is the proposed lot line. The dashed line is the existing lot line. By city code, city staff can actually administratively approve lot line adjustments between 2 lots when legal descriptions of the lot pre and post adjustment are short and simple. And we regularly review and approve those. The longer and more complicated the legal description is, the greater there is opportunity for error, both for a surveyor, for city staff reviewing that, for recording at the county, and that can certainly affect future property owners. So in those cases, staff requires coming through the platting process to clean up and simplify those legal descriptions. So that's what's happening here. The proposed plat, again, adjusts a common lot line. There are no new lots created. I would note, and we talked about at the Planning Commission, that because both of these lots in their existing and proposed configurations are over 1 acre in size, the tree removal thresholds of the tree protection ordinance don't apply in the existing condition or in the proposed condition. So there's no change in that restriction or allowance, as the case may be. So staff does recommend approval of the plats, as the lots would meet all minimum standards. And we also recommend approval of the easement vacation along that pre-plat common lot line, because the easements would be recreated along the post-plat common lot line. And I turn it back to Mayor Shack.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Council, any questions? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been trying to get my packet to load, and as usual, I'm having trouble with my iPad, which I've had all week. So just thinking about, there was a tree inventory. I talked to Mr. Funk about it. The general explanation was that the number of trees in total for this iteration, was it the same as would have been for previous? And if you could just explain that a little bit, because I can't pull up my packet, and actually neither can Councilmember Romali. So anyway, if you could just explain the tree inventory situation, how it compares to the previous proposal or iteration of the proposal.
Ms. Thomas.
Mayor and Councilmember Calvert, I'm bringing up I'm also attempting to bring up the packet right now. So the city did receive 2 sets of plans on this. The first set of plans, the lot lines were the same. The shape and location of the proposed home was different, and the original plan did not show a removal of some wooden retaining walls that are along the back side of the trail that's on McGinty Road. And so staff requested that if the applicant was proposing to remove that retaining wall, which is actually on city property and the city has to maintain, that they would reflect that in their plans. And then as part of that, the size and configuration of the home changed also. So those 2 things led to the change in the number of trees that would be removed. Staff had a lot of conversation about those trees that are in the right-of-way, which is where the retaining wall is. And at some point, that wall will need to be replaced. And at some point, those trees would be removed, whether it's, or impacted certainly significantly, whether it's the city that's doing the removal and replacement of that retaining wall or the applicant. So we did also do a little bit of a breakdown in the report of how many trees are associated with the retaining wall and how many trees are associated with construction. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. I will invite the applicant to come forward if you'd like. You're not required to, but if you have something you'd like to say, just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Kelsey Thompson, Lake West Development, 14525, Highway 7, Minnetonka. I'm just here to stand for some questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Well, we may call you back up, but I think we're good for right now. Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? Anybody? Okay, not seeing anybody. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any comments or further discussion. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you. We've been talking, this is not the first time we've talked about this property, and everyone knows how I feel about trees, and it's not so much just even the number of trees that are coming down, but the type. So a lot of mature oak trees. It's not just things like box elders and trees that people consider less desirable. And I mentioned to Mr. Funk, and he knows, he's been listening to me say it for years now, the 1 acre lot loophole on tree removal ordinances still, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. And so I will be pushing for that till we have a good discussion on that. So thank you.
Council, anything else? Councilmember Romali.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to second those comments by Councilmember Calvert. I think it is a shame, especially in this Arbor Day and Earth Month, to see those trees, so many trees go down. I understand the needs for, kind of redeveloping and the issues with the retaining wall. So I'm not going to oppose it per se, but I agree that the 1 acre kind of requirement maybe needs to be revisited. So thank you.
Council, anything else? I will just make a brief comment. You know, I share some of the reservations anytime we see that there's going to be significant tree loss, and, you know, I am concerned about that. I have, you know, driven by this property quite a few times and stopped and taken a look at it. I also recognize to develop that second lot with any kind of meaningful change and putting housing on that lot would necessitate some significant tree removal. So with that, you know, while I have a little bit of heartburn, I don't feel quite as terribly about this one as I have at some of those in the past. But with our zoning code rewrite moving right along and coming back to us, I think there is, you know, there is some opportunity to consider some of these things that have tripped us up. So, but with that, it sounds like we're kind of all apprehensively, but on the same page with this. So I would take a motion on this item. Councilmember Romali.
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolutions approving the preliminary and final plat of Oakland Estates, second edition, and an easement vacation for the properties at 1915 and 1929 Oakland Road.
Thank you. And a second? Councilmember Maxwell.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Romali and a second by Councilmember Maxwell. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Reluctantly, yes.
Romali,
Yes.
Shack.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. And, you know, I'm just gonna say, I think we're all having problems with our iPads, so I'm wondering if there's an internet, maybe hosting issue, Granicus or Amazon Web Services. So just FYI, and we're gonna all do the best we can based on what we have access to here, which we're good at as long as we're not clicking into packet items. All right. Moving on to item 14, other business, 14A, which is 16141 McGinty Road West, and this is a utility billing appeal. Mr. Funk, are you going to take this, or Mr. Nelson? Oh, Mr. Nelson.
Yes. Good evening. Okay, so we got it up and running. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My pleasure to be with you tonight. Yes, we have a utility bill appeal for 16141 McGinty Road West. And there is, where are we at here on? Okay. All right, and so there is a staff recommendation with this appeal is a motion to deny the appeal and uphold the current billing statement, including all past due amounts with no adjustments, and would need 4 votes for that motion. So a little bit of background: Mr. Rivera, the property owner at 16141 McGinty Road West, is formally appealing his September-December utility bills due to a water leak at the property, which resulted in a couple high utility bills, to say the least. Minnetonka City Code 1200.030 subsection 4, subparagraph 4, allows for utility customers to appeal their utility bills first to the city manager and then to the city council if so desired. This is the first. The city council has the final determination on any of those appeals. City council may not be aware of this process. We haven't had any of these for a number of years on, from what I've gathered on that end of it. And Mr. Rivera contacted City Manager Funk about towards the end of last September about a formal appeal process, and has wished to bring it forward to the city council at this point. So a little bit of background on how we got to here. Mr. Rivera purchased this property on or about May 1st of 2025. He did not occupy the residence for some time until sometime in the fall of last year, due to allowing the previous owner a month or so to stay in that property, and then to accommodate some remodeling activity that was taking place over the summer and through the early fall. City Code Section 1200.030, subparagraph 2 states the owner of a property is responsible for all bills accruing through the use of water and sewer facilities on that property, whether the property is being occupied by the owner or someone else. City records indicate a water leak started sometime in July and was not corrected until about mid-September. So there was a couple of utility bills received. The first one that was received was in September, and that was for a billing period of June 6th through September 2nd, 2025. Likely received the end of September, first part of October. That meter read 855,000 gallons of water. And I know you all know that's quite a bit of water on that end of it, and it was a substantial bill. The next billing period from September 3rd to December 3rd indicated another 267,000 gallons of water. Majority of that was in the September reading, and so we assume that that's from that September 3rd timeframe through about the middle of September when the leak was caught, measured about that 228,000 gallons. And the remaining gallons of 39,000 were from October and November, which is still a good chunk of water for that time of year. To kind of put this into context, the average quarterly water usage is anywhere from 15 to 20,000 gallons per quarter. And this was, 1.1 million gallons over 2 quarters, a substantial amount of water, obviously. This may be a little hard to read, but here are 2 snippets of, on the left side is the September bill, kind of the bottom half, and it shows your usage of 855 units, which is 855,000 gallons of water. And then that is charged out at a water rate based off the tier of all of those units of water. We had 4 tiers at that point in time. And so we had a little over a $6,000 charge for just the water piece of that bill, amounting to $6,200 for that September quarter. The bill on the right is the December quarter. There you can see there was 267 units, or 267,000 gallons of water used, and that amounted to about $1,750 worth of water on that bill as well. And then you can see here is the most recent bill. This was from March, and so you can see there that the water leak has been corrected. It's been winter usage, so there's been no irrigation, anything like that. The usage is back to a nominal amount of 10,000 gallons of water that were used. And I should note, going back to these previous bills, if you notice the water consumption is 855,000 gallons. We set the sewer consumption at a 15,000 gallon amount each year. Based off of prior history, there was no history here, so we just set that base at a 15,000 gallon amount moving forward. So we charged 15 units of sewer usage for both the September and December bills. You can see that 15,000 here, and then here on the December bill. Then moving forward from March, there was 10,000 gallons used. Now we have a little bit of history. You will use that 10,000 as the base for sewer usage moving forward into the future. So as I indicated, there was continuous water usage that started sometime in July and was not corrected until mid-September timeframe. The city does have a long-standing history of sending leak notices to residents. When we receive a report that there has been continuous usage over a 24-hour time frame, we'll send out monthly leak notices. This property did receive leak notices in both August and then again in early September. And from the best of our knowledge, there was no, Mr. Rivera didn't contact Public Works or our utility billing department at that point in time. So those went unanswered at that point. So Mr. Rivera's first contact with the city was on September 11th when my utility billing staff was going through their quarterly billing. Mr. Rivera was in that billing, and she was going through the exception report and noticed the high usage. So she called him directly. We had his number since he had just moved in. Called him, left a voicemail, and Mr. Rivera then contacted us shortly thereafter and worked with both Public Works and a private plumbing contractor to get that water issue resolved shortly thereafter. And so you may be asking yourself, do we get these types of requests often? Fortunately, we don't get them often, but we do get them. We probably get 1 to 2 of these types of scenarios a year with a substantial water usage like this. A lot of times we'll have somebody that buys a property, we've had pipes, and then is from a different state, shuts the heat and electricity off, and they'll turn the water off, and the pipes burst, basement fills up with water, that type of thing, or spigots go that are broken and then are running outside, unbeknownst to the owner, those types of things. So what we do recommend is that homeowners contact their insurance company to see what they have for homeowners coverage as far as repairing the fix and or paying for the utility bill as well too. And we did recommend that to Mr. Rivera through various email communications as well. In all these other situations, we have not typically adjusted utility bills either. Obviously, homeowners or property owners are looking to reduce that impact as best they can, but we do stand firm on where we're at with utility bills, and we do not make adjustments. We have 17,000 accounts, so we try to make it equitable across all accounts. And so if the city incurred, costs to pump that water, treat that water, deliver that water, and so if we reduce a cost for somebody, we're basically pushing that burden off onto the rest of the utility users on that end of it. And then we have a lot of customers too that just pay the bill. I mean, they may have had a leak, didn't contact us, we may not know about it, and so then by them not contacting us, they're not necessarily getting that kind of equitable or fair same treatment if we reduced a bill from somebody else on that end of it. But we do allow customers, so when there are big issues like this, we do allow customers some grace in paying that bill. We know it's burdensome, and so we try to do as best we can. We'll eliminate any late fees with that. We'll allow them to kind of pay that off on through the next assessment term. And so kind of what happens with that is, so in this instance, Mr. Rivera's leak happened in August, September timeframe. And what we do is we certify to the city council every year in November, you certify a list of delinquent utility bills. Well, those are delinquent utility bills that were from the August to August timeframe. And so this bill didn't come to us until September. And so Mr. Rivera is going to have until this fall to really pay that bill without any additional fees, without any additional interest. And at that point in time, if he doesn't pay that, we would certify it then to Hennepin County, and it would go on to his property taxes to be paid through collections in 2027. And in this instance, we also forgave any late fees associated with his account. We won't be charging any late fees for the remainder of this year until this issue is cleared up on that end of it. Oh, going the wrong direction. And so Mr. Rivera is only being charged for the water leak. So as we mentioned, when I looked at those utility bills, we showed the 15 units of sewer usage. We're assuming that water, from what we gathered, the water went through a backup sump pump, water-powered sump pump. So hopefully that water went outside, went to a stormwater collection versus a sanitary sewer collection. But if it did reach the sanitary sewer system, we don't know that. We can't prove that. We don't know that. But we will be billed by Met Council next year if any of that water did reach the sanitary sewer system. And then I should just lastly, Mr. Rivera stated in that some remodeling was being done at his home, but also that he was installing some landscaping as well too. So a lot of this water was likely due to that leak with the sump pump, but I think some of this water might have been related to some landscaping that was put in place as well too to keep that watering of that new landscape in place and such like that too. That's probably why there was some higher usage in that October-November timeframe, would be my guess. So given the facts and circumstances of these two utility bills in the light of City Code 1200.030, subparagraph 2, the staff recommends to deny the appeal and to make no changes to the September and December utility bills. And again, the motion would be to deny the appeal and uphold the current billing statement, including all past due amounts with no adjustment. So, and I would recall, again, need 4 votes. And I believe Mr. Rivera is here tonight as well too, so he may want to speak as well too. So
all right,
with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have with that.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Council, any questions for Mr. Nelson? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. So you were saying that the Met Council, we won't know what we're going to get billed for treatment until the end of the year. Is there any way to get an estimate from them? Is there any way for them to check or earlier so that we have sort of an idea?
Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, Mayor Shack, Councilmember Calvert. Probably not. Met Council measures the sewage leaving the city at certain, they got flow meters at different points of the city and such like that. So even though this is a lot of gallons per an individual home, it's probably not a big fluctuation notice within Met Council's flow numbers for the entire city at that point in time. So it's going to be it's going to be a cost there if there was water there that went through the sanitary sewer system, but if not, then there's no additional cost to the city at that point in time. So, and we have no way of proving yes or no on that. And so we're just that's just our kind of sunk cost, I believe, to move forward with this. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Nelson? Councilmember Maxwell.
Yeah, I have a question. If the appeal was notified, or Mr. Funk was notified of the appeal in September, why has it taken it this long to come before us? And the reason I'm asking is, if we're talking about a year to pay back this without penalty from the date that it happened, would it make sense to have it be a year from the date that a decision was made on whether that would need to be paid back?
Mayor Shack, Councilmember Maxwell. That's a good question. There was a little bit of timing issue. So when Mr. Rivera contacted us, he hadn't even received his September bill, so he was very proactive about, hey, our utility bill staff reached out to me. I have a big leak, big water leak. I'm going to have a big bill coming out shortly on that end of it. And then what we wanted to do is, since there was a little bit of leak in that next quarterly billing as well too, we wanted to kind of hold off and get the whole picture of what the leak size of that leak was. And so that's why we waited a little bit. And then I believe Mr. Rivera had some, he was busy calendar-wise and schedule-wise with that the first part of the year. So as far as holding off from a decision at this point in time, I would be reluctant to do that. I would say you probably still have, close to 6 months until that November timeframe to pay that utility bill at this point in time, or to figure out other payment options at that point outside of the city. So,
thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Nelson? All right. We may have you come back up, but thanks, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Rivera, if you'd like to come up and provide some comments, happy to hear you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm so sorry that happened. My intention is obviously not to waste water. I care deeply about the environment. I was actually happy to be at this meeting and see the awards that people got for that. I really do care about the environment. I diligently recycle at my office, recycle at my house. I really do care about the environment. And it's a shame that happened. I wish I would have been notified earlier. Because I did not live at the house, I was living in downtown Minneapolis, I was not checking the mail. I didn't change my address to the new address until then, and I didn't expect any mail, so that's why I was not checking. And only my general contractor and his team were there. And the first time I got the call was on September 11. The same day, I instructed my general contractor to call the city, and then somebody from the city went there, inspected that, thought it was the water softener, and it was not. And then we contacted a private plumber, and they fixed that on September 19. So from the day I knew this was September 11, by September 19, it was fully fixed. Checked by the plumber, checked by my contractor, and the issue was resolved. I wish I would have known in July when that happened, and I didn't have a reason to check my mail. I don't even know if the notices were there or not. I'm assuming they were. I'm not saying that they were not there, but I didn't check my mail because I have a different address. So obviously these causes a very financial hardship to me. And the reason why, to answer your question, I was busy because I'm an immigration attorney and I was working with the issues of Metro Search. I filed habeas corpuses. Tons of them. I work until 3 a.m. many days, because if you didn't file it that day, the person was going to be shipped to Texas, and then there was no way to bring them back in some cases. I still have cases that people are detained. So it was very busy, and that's why we had to do it today. And I really apologize. I wanted to get this resolved as soon as possible, and I also wanted to see the clear picture of this. If you see that my actual billing is 10,000 gallons, not 855,000 gallons, obviously. And, I just purchased this home. I made a big effort to be part of this community. I really enjoy to be in this area of town. I have good friends here. I want to make this my community and be as a positive member of community. And this will create a really financial hardship for me. It's $8,200 that I will have to pay. Any reduction will be welcome. In my packet, if you go by historical usage, it will be around $400 for each period, so it will be $800. So it will be 10% of what the bill is. I will welcome that. If you don't agree with that, at least I would like to be charged what the minimum rate is, because the rate when you go from 1 to 18 is one rate. When you go from 18 to whatever is a different rate, and so on. And obviously, because it was so high, I'm being charged the highest rate. I want to pay for the water that was wasted, that unintentionally that happened. But, it's just, I appeal to your, to understand what happened. These are exceptional circumstances. I did not intend to waste water, and I will never do it again. I actually called my insurance, and my insurance has a $10,000 deductible, so it will be futile to file a claim. And also I called in one of the emails that the city sent me, and I wanted to thank everybody from the city. They were very attentive and they worked with me, and I really appreciate that. It was very, very good, the contact I have with the city. They also suggested to call a number to get the meter replaced. So these meters have now an app that you can check in, actual use and current time, like real-time use. And I did that. They said that they are not doing it now because of the weather, but they're going to start doing actually middle of April, early May. So I will call again and get on that. And, I just appeal to your humanity and see that, it's very hard, pay for the taxes are coming, I pay for the down payment, I pay a lot of things and the remodeling, so, it has been very hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Okay, council, any other questions for staff? Councilmember Wilburn.
So I know we don't have a history of words are escaping me, of like forgiving these charges that accrue, whether the resident is on site or not. Is it possible to look at the lower rate that was suggested?
Mr. Nelson.
Councilmember Wilburn. We can absolutely do that. I would caution a little bit is that we haven't done that before. We've had some leaks that have been similar circumstances, same gallons or more gallons on that end of it. That's completely your call on that end of it. Just note that this was in our kind of July through September timeframe, which is the timeframe that is the greatest demand in our system as well too. And so we're having to pump a lot of water to keep up with the demand, and this water was obviously just was through a leak that it disappeared, and so we didn't get its full benefit out of that water. But it was during a high demand time of the year.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So my other question is, and sort of following up on what Councilmember Maxwell had mentioned, just the amount of time to pay this off. Would it be possible to extend beyond November to allow the longer for them to pay it off?
So, I'm sorry.
Mr. Nelson.
Mayor Shack, Councilmember Wilburn, City Council. We can do that. It would delay the certification then for another year. Or if it doesn't go to certification at all and it gets paid off. Otherwise, if it is certified to the City Council in November, it would go on to the property tax statement and be paid over that additional year. There would be interest on that charge, so whatever balance that gets certified in November, there would be, typically we charge a 10% fee for our delinquent utility customers, and then a $25 admin fee on there as well too. But then you would basically have an additional year to pay that through your taxes. Obviously, you're paying a small percentage interest rate on that, but or not a small, but 10% on your remaining balance or whatever is there. So there are a couple options even if you didn't extend it for another year. So
thank you. Council, any other questions? All right, well, we are in the position to make this decision, which I know isn't easy, but I'm open to hearing your thoughts. Anybody? Councilmember Romali.
Thank you, Mayor. This resident lives in Ward 3, and I'm very familiar with the home. Also, I've been in the position of not living in my house before moving permanently to it. I did make sure my general contractor had a leak monitor on it. And, it was his job to, do that oversight. And then one other time I have had an exterior faucet that leaked and had to pay a pretty substantial leak fee or water usage fee. So, I know how painful that is. However, I'm a little bit confused about the financial hardship, because unless I'm really mistaken about the house, maybe the applicant can correct me. And it's neither here nor there in my decision, but I believe that house sold for about $1.5 million last fall, or before it was sold this previous time. So I guess it's neither here nor there, but it is a piece of information I think my fellow council members might want to know about when considering this case. So given those factors, I'm really sorry for it, but I'm not prepared to put this on the backs of our other, raising the fees or putting this on the backs of other users of this utility. I don't think that's fair. I think it sets a bad precedent. And I think we all have to take responsibilities for, kind of our actions or inactions, including being a homeowner. So, at this point, I'm inclined to deny the appeal.
Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm very sympathetic. I mean, I appreciate Mr. Rivera's comments about caring about the environment, and I think he's very sincere in his remorse. And it's a terrible feeling to basically waste over 1 million gallons of water. So. I take that to heart, but also I'm also familiar with the house, and it's one of those things. Things happen to many people. I have a friend that bought a new car, and the first day she drove it, she got into a car wreck, and her brand new, driven once only car was totaled. I mean, things happen, and I feel a lot of sympathy, but I also feel sympathy for the other ratepayers, and I just feel that this is a situation where the utility payer is going to have to pay the bill. I would love to give them, we have until I believe November to pay the bill, so it can be paid in installments, and I'm just not inclined to put it on the backs of other taxpayers and ratepayers.
Thank you, Councilmember Calvert. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute? Councilmember Wilburn.
So I also know the pain. Many years ago, when my adult children were still children, Minnetonka staff came out to my house on a Friday, said there's a leak somewhere. We're going to come back on Monday to determine if it's on your part of the property or our part of the property. And that Saturday morning there was water flowing through my finished basement. So that was quite a mess and very painful. So I do understand the pain. I also am not inclined to, as we say, pass on those costs to other people. I would be willing to consider, like I said, more time. That might be something that, see what you can do, see if you can get it done by November, and maybe come back if that's not possible. But yes, as of now, I'm sort of with my fellow council members.
Councilmember Foster Bolton.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, as am I, based on the fact that because I didn't know about the house prior to this, so I appreciate you saying it. And the other thing is that when I read it, I had, thought that this was the first time this has happened, and clearly it isn't, and it does work out, and it's bigger bill. So I feel like this isn't once you know, the first time this has happened in the city, and it's, you know, it's been dealt with before, so I agree with my colleagues.
Did you, Councilmember Maxwell, you don't have to say anything.
Oh, sure. I'll just say I'm sorry about this abysmal welcome to the city of Minnetonka to have this sort of thing happen in your home. But I agree it's not something that I feel the rest of the taxpayers of the city should have to subsidize this type of an incident. So I am also in favor of denying the appeal. I would be willing to give a bit more time to pay it back without going to collections, but I would prefer to deny the appeal.
All right, thank you. I mean, these are the things that just are so hard for us because there's no good resolution. We could do something and make one person whole while kind of creating a whole cascading effect on the rest of the system and precedent, and I certainly don't relish making these decisions. The rest of the glamorous work we do is much, but I certainly recognize that Mr. Rivera did not mean any malice by this. He's not a, environmental scofflaw, and so that's what makes this hard. It was an accident. Unfortunately, this is not if we said, okay, we'll take our profit, we'll just charge you our cost. Well, that's already how the system's set up, is to just charge you our cost. And so I agree that this is just one of those things that we're going to have to address in denying the appeal. I would be fine with holding off on certification of any remaining balance until November of 2027, if that's something I'm hearing some of my fellow council members say. So that would give an extended period of time to get that paid off. I know the feeling of saying, well, that's still money I still have to come up with, but that would give, I think, a lot of relief. So if I'm seeing nods, so maybe we would take a motion to deny the appeal with the understanding that certification on any remaining balance would be delayed until the November 2027 certification period. Is that an adequate summary, Mr. Nilsson? Okay. So if somebody wants to make that motion, Councilmember Rameli.
Thank you. It gives me no pleasure, but I'll make the motion to deny the appeal and uphold the current billing statement, including all past due amounts, with no adjustment, but with the extended period of time for repayment till November of 2026. 27. 27? 27. Okay, 27.
And a second, Councilmember Wilburn.
I will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Rameli, a second by Councilmember Wilburn. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
Yeah.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Rameli?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Rivera, I apologize. We do not relish in making this decision. Thank you for coming. We hope that your experience in the community is better going forward, and we're very glad to have you here, and we're very, I know to a person on the council, appreciative of the work that you're doing in your day job. So thank you very much. All right, moving along. 14B, purchase agreement for the property at 16809 State Highway 7. That is Ms. Wishnack.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This is something that's being brought back to. We had a closed session about 2 months ago to talk about purchase of this property. Now all the information is public information about our purchase, or our potential purchase, I should say. This is a property location. You can, I don't know, if you drive on Highway 7 a lot, you know the house that we're looking at here. This came to us as a situation where the current owner was in the process of selling to another owner in early 25, and while the new owner was conducting their due diligence on the sale, they were notified the septic system was failing. And so the property is also on a private well, and there are lots of different ordinances that dictate how somebody gets connected and when they have to connect, and then they're not very long time periods, but that is the situation this property faced when they were going through this transaction. So what that took us to is an engagement with, and Susan, if you can point out the property in question, is the 16809, and then we had to engage with the two properties to the west because the sewer line is all the way right there where the new nursing home building is. So sewer and water accessibility is quite a distance away, and so in talking through would have to be the extension in the backyards of these homes, it was determined that there was quite a cost. There was almost $500,000 to get water and sewer back to this property to get them to a working situation for utilities. And so during that discussion, we found out that these two properties to the west did not have a need at the current moment for those utilities, and obviously the price tag that was shared with them was quite extreme, and they were not in a position to support that extension. At that point, the city decided perhaps we could talk to this owner about buying the property, moving the folks out that live there today, and by the way, they have found new housing, and so that is not a difficulty for the home renter at this point, so we're secured in that they have future housing. The city would buy the property for about $285,000. That doesn't include closing costs, that sort of thing. So there's additional fees that go along with that. And we would hold on to the property until such a time that the sewer extension and the water extension can be made in a more efficient and hopefully with the support of the other two properties to the west. And we would use the development fund to provide the financing for the 285 at a future point if we sell it for redevelopment, additional development on the site, what have you. Then those funds would return back to the development fund and replace the monies that were spent for this sale. It's not always that we do this type of purchase, but in speaking with Public Works and our engineering folks, it just seemed to be the right answer for this very difficult situation that the city step in and purchase the property. If you want to know the details on the home, it is built in 1948. It's sitting on about a half an acre. It's it's a two-bedroom home. It has a one-stall garage off to the left side. And as we talked in the closed session, we could remodel it. It's actually in fairly good condition. We could do some remodeling in the future. Another option, you could demolish it at some point and then subdivide the property. And of course, always in the mind of doing more affordable homes is the long-term goal. So with that, Mayor, the actual action that you have to consider is a motion to adopt the resolution approving the purchase agreement for 16809 State Highway 7, and we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wishnak. Council, any questions? We did spend some time talking about this in the closed session. Councilmember Wilburn.
So the plan is then to wait for those two neighboring properties to either sell the property or come to a point where their systems are failing, and then do all three properties at the same time, get them onto the system.
Ms. Wishnak.
If I may, Councilmember Wilburn and council members, I think that there could be a bunch of different ways this could come up in the future. So it could be that one or more of the properties to the west need services. Now that if we're able to buy this property, we're in control of that third piece. Let's say the property in between is going to sell. That might be a time to ask for utility extension. I think what's difficult is at this moment in time, nobody needs it other than this property the furthest away. So, but that decision could arrive in, I think, multiple ways.
Which, I have one more thing.
Go ahead, Councilmember Wilburn.
Kind of feeds into my next question is, so what is our, what's the procedure for if we're holding a property that's not occupied as far as maintenance? How often is someone going out and maintaining the property, mowing the lawn, and make sure no one's squatting? How much, or what's the procedure for that, and like, where does the money for that come from?
Yeah.
Ms. Wishnak.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Wilburn. The city does contract with a property manager, and we do track the property management costs over time. So the development fund will pay for those costs. They get refunded at such a time that the sale, assuming there's more money that comes into the fund than expended. That's typically what's happened in the past when we've managed a property for a longer period of time. You think of the Roland Road property, we managed that for years, but the rent kind of offset those costs. I think here the sale probably would offset those costs. So they take care of the management of the property, they check on it, they make sure it's secure. We have installed security in other situations, especially someplace where it's a little bit, maybe even though it's on the highway, it could have some people that might want to visit, and so we'll make sure we have security cameras. We have had to do that before on other properties we've owned.
Anything else on this? Any comments? Otherwise, I think we did kind of talk about this, so I would entertain a motion as well. Councilmember Foster Bolton.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the purchase agreement for a property at 16809 State Highway 7.
And Councilmember Romali.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Foster Bolton, a second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Romali?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are cooking with fire here. All right. Item 14C, which is a conditional use permit for licensed residential care facilities at 2000 Hopkins Crossroad. And Ms. Thomas, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor Shack. This evening, staff is recommending that the council adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit for this project. As you are aware, this 2.5-acre property is situated southwest of the Hopkins Crossroad 394 interchange. It is zoned and guided for single-family or low-density residential use, but it's never been used in that traditional residential setting. The building on the site, the original building, which is the northerly portion, was constructed in 1920 as a school. And then in the 1950s, that southerly one-story addition was made. 30 years after that addition, in the mid-1980s, the school itself was closed and the building in its entirety was repurposed as an adolescent residential drug treatment facility. And the use of that building, or that specific use, ended a few years ago, and the building is currently vacant. The building is generally centrally located on the site. It has existing parking lots to its east and north. It's relatively flat, but if you walk the site, there is an upward slope from behind the building to that rear property line. And it's along that slope and some along the north property line where most of the mature trees on the site are located. Hopefully you'll recall that in the fall of 2025, the applicant this evening did present 4 concept plans for redevelopment of the site. 2 of those plans contemplated retaining and renovating the oldest portion of the school building, and then 2 other plans contemplated its demolition. All of the plans showed construction of residential care facilities for people living with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And during the concept plan review phase, members of both the Planning Commission and City Council noted that while they understood that it might not be economically feasible to reuse that building, they certainly hoped the applicant would take a look at that. I would say that broadly, the Planning Commission and City Council felt that this residential type of use of the property was appropriate. The group then, Excelsior Group, consulted with a construction company and an affordable housing developer who specializes in historic reuse projects. And after speaking with them and going through their numbers, they found that the cost to refurbish the building, whether it be for office or commercial use, or the cost to convert that existing building into housing, was simply too great. So the Excelsior Group has now submitted, on behalf of English Rose, a formal application to redevelop the property. The plan does call for removing the existing school building in its entirety, and then constructing 2 10-bedroom residential care homes. The homes themselves would be 1 story in size and about 8,000 square feet. I should say they're 8,000 square feet in size, 1 story in height. They would feature common spaces, including the kitchen, living rooms, dining rooms, staff, dedicated areas, and then again, 10 bedrooms in each home. The homes themselves would be served by 20 parking stalls, generally located in the same place as those existing parking lots to the east and to the north of the buildings. To accommodate the redevelopment, there would be earthwork that would occur and tree removal associated with that. About 2 to 6 feet of excavation in the northerly and central area of the site. Some of that occurring in that upward slope. Also excavation certainly to provide for the 3 rain gardens that are located on the site to perform stormwater management. The grading is likely to affect 6 high priority trees, 4 of which are on the rear slope, and then 2 on the north parking lot. Staff does support the proposed redevelopment for 3 reasons. First, and perhaps foremost, we find that the proposed use is reasonable and appropriate. Though it's been used for other uses, it's always been residentially zoned and residentially guided, so this type of use is consistent with that. In our opinion, the site and the building have been thoughtfully designed. The buildings are centrally located, so they're positioned away from the county road. They're also positioned away from existing dwellings. The amount of parking that's proposed actually exceeds city code requirements, and the driveway access as it's proposed does offer the best sight lines along the county road. And then finally, this proposal does meet all of the conditional use permit standards that are outlined in code. So that was kind of a brief presentation, but just to conclude, we do recognize that removing that school building that has existed for over 100 years will certainly change the character of the property and the area. But in the opinion of staff, the Excelsior Group proposal has been well thought out. It's attractive. Again, it meets all city code requirements. The Planning Commission considered the project at its March 26th meeting and did concur with staff's recommendation, recommending that the City Council approve the proposal. Before I turn it back to you, Mayor Schack, I would point out that the applicant has been very engaged with the neighborhood. We've received only 2 comments from area residents. One was in your addendum tonight. Both of those are in favor of the project as presented. The applicant has also had really good conversation with the Minnetonka Historical Society, and I think they'll talk about that this evening. And so with that, I would turn it back to the mayor and council for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Okay, council, any questions for staff? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Technically, the public hearing on this item happened at the Planning Commission, but I'm going to invite the applicant to come on up and tell us what you'd like us to know from your perspective. And please provide us with your name and address.
Jill Kiner, 1660 Utica, St. Louis Park. I'm with the Excelsior Group. Thank you for having us back to talk some more about this project. Since we met with the council last fall, we've evolved the site plan. Ms. Thompson covered a number of the evolutions, but I'll just point out a couple of key features that I think might be interesting to the council. As you can see, rather than the more linear home structure that we started with, we opted to go with a home layout that we call kind of a cluster approach. The good thing about that is it meets the needs of the operator, English Rose, but it also really helps that larger building feel in scale with the residential area around that, and I hope some of the renderings help to give that picture. Another thing that we have evolved is how we're addressing stormwater. So we originally thought we'd do one big storm pond, but and this is probably a great learning opportunity for the students. So I'll try and bumble through my civil engineering knowledge here. But because of the slope on the site, it was really difficult to get all the water to drain down to one big stormwater pond. So instead, we're addressing it through 3 rain gardens. One, as you're seeing there on the north on the site, second down on the south of the site, and then one in the middle that we've incorporated into an amenity area for the residents. So it'll really become a beautiful landscaping feature. That amenity area is fully fenced in. So it's secure. It's a space where residents can go out through each of the homes. There's a sunroom, a deck, and then there's a walking path that goes throughout that amenity area. We'll have benches, raised garden beds, and gathering spaces so family members can come and spend time with their loved ones there. Another thing, we did our best to retain as many of the mature trees as we could, but our tree replacement plan also includes replanting or adding at least 8 trees along the boulevard. That was something that we heard in our last meeting with the council, that we could reforest that boulevard plantings, that would be a value add. Right now our plan has 3-inch calipers, so diameter, but we are working with our landscaper right now to see if we can increase that, maybe even as high as 6, which would give us up to 30 feet of trees right at install. So really give that, replace more of the mature trees, and we're looking at some really fast-growing species, oaks and maples, with a diversity of tree type. A key item of discussion when we presented last time was around retention of the school building. And as Ms. Thompson said, we did explore that in a number of different ways. And ultimately are presenting a project that does remove it. However, through working with the Minnetonka Historical Society and the Sherwood Forest Association, we've agreed on a plan to memorialize the school building in the following ways. So one, the Historical Society will come in and photograph and document the building. The Historical Society will then design a memorial plaque, which we will pay for and install in a public area on the site. We are also going to retain some of the red brick that's on the exterior of the building and use that to line the sidewalks that go up to the front doors of the homes, as well as in some of the monument signage and other signage on the site. And then retain the Oak Knoll School building sign. And our goal now, we're working with the landscaper to make sure we can actually do this, but our goal is to reuse that sign in landscaping in a public area. So the sign and the monument plaque would be in a space somewhere close to the parking lot where people can come, see it, take a minute, read the plaque, and be by the school sign as well. So those are some of the key features of the new part of the plan, and I'm just available for any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions for the developer? Okay, Ms. Kleiner, thank you. We may have you back up, but there's been a miraculously low number of comments about this, so.
Take it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So council, I was going to say we would be happy to take comment from but I don't see anybody here on this project, so let's just have a conversation. Certainly, maybe shocking, at least to me, that we haven't heard more from the neighbors. Maybe that's a testament to the project. So, council, anything? Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I will just say that the neighbors that have commented are positive, and that speaks so well about English Rose and is in stark contrast to some of the other developers that we saw in recent memory, including tonight. So I actually mentioned to Mr. Funk earlier today that, I think this developer is very sensitive to the needs of the community and their desires, and it's something that unfortunately is very needed. No matter how many of these facilities that we build, it won't be enough. From what I can tell, it's very attractive. I think it's a very appropriate use for this property. I appreciate the comments about tree replacement. I know that maples grow faster than oaks. I also know that there are some pretty wonderful slower growing trees that we might be losing on that property, and they're also valuable and more in their own way more durable. So putting in a plug for those, and I really like the design concepts in terms of honoring what has been there. I think they're all really good ideas, and I'm in favor. I think it's well thought out and going to be a good amenity for the city.
Any other? Councilmember Maxwell.
I agree with Councilmember Calvert. I think this is a beautiful project. I'm excited to support it. One thing I'll add, just as a general comment, is that generally I like to reduce the amount of impervious surface, and so to see parking exceeding what is required by the city, usually I would be against that. In this case, for this particular use, it makes sense. If you're going to have that many bedrooms and with staff coming and going, in this case, I am supportive of that more intensive use of the property.
Anybody else have a perspective they want to share? Councilmember Romali.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. This is a lovely design. It is a reasonable and even laudable use. I applaud all the work that has gone into this and thought that has gone into this design. And I also find it tragic to lose the school. I was, recently in Washington, D.C., in the old neighborhood that I lived in, where there were many structures built at about the same time as this that have been preserved and retained. And even closer to home, we have Excelsior Elementary School, the Excelsior City Hall, other places that have been saved. And I'm just sad, very sad, as somebody who has studied history and was trained as an historian, to see this go. I wish we could somehow save it. I wish it could be sold for $1 and moved. I would love to see that tried if it hasn't been already. But I agree that this is, for all the reasons that have already been stated, that I will be sadly approving this project.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I will just from a recent past historical context say that this property has not been without its neighborhood engagement. So I have total faith that this is not neighbors not paying attention. It's neighbors who are probably relieved. I have mixed feelings about the building. I think it creates a pretty traumatic response for neighbors who were there. It was a difficult, there were difficult many years, just the nature of what type of care was being provided at that building in the past. And so I think that's why we haven't heard more pleased to keep the building. You know, I was very torn about it and drove by with my husband, and my husband said he's usually like, don't tear it down type of person. He really is, to Councilmember Romali's point. And his response was like, it's an old building, but it's not one that I would, go to the map for. And I thought about it, and I can understand that not all of these older buildings are created equal. To that point, I think that this is a very worthy project. I think we're always looking for these types of diversity of living spaces, and call it, it's housing, but kind of a different use of housing. And so I'm appreciative also to the care that the developer has put into coming up with this proposal and thinking about options. So with that, I would take a motion. Councilmember Calvert. We'll get it on the screen here. Okay.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt the resolution approving a conditional use permit for 2 licensed residential care facilities at 2000 Hopkins Crossroad.
Councilmember Foster Bolton.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert, a second by Councilmember Foster Bolton. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Romali?
Yes.
Shack?
Yes, motion carries. Good luck with the project, and we're excited to see it come to fruition. All right. 14D is a conditional use permit request for an accessory dwelling unit at 15815 Minnetonka Boulevard. And Ms. Thomas?
Thank you again. Staff this evening is recommending that the council adopt the resolution denying this specific conditional use permit request. To give you some context, this property is quite large. It's located on the south side of Minnetonka Boulevard. If you drive down Minnetonka Boulevard, you've likely seen it. The property is about 1.35 acres in size. It contains this existing single-family home constructed in 1941. It has a floor area of just over 4,500 square feet. In the zoning ordinance in Minnetonka, perhaps unlike other communities, we define floor area as enclosed space that's above grade. That does include garage space. And 1/2 of the space of a walkout or lookout level. We don't include full basements in our floor area. That's because Minnetonka has historically looked at mass in terms of building size rather than what's below ground, essentially. This property also includes an existing accessory dwelling unit that was built in the 1970s, and that structure has a floor area of just over 900 square feet. Here is a picture of the south side of that structure, as well as existing floor of both the main floor and second floor. The property owners are proposing to remove this existing ADU and construct a new ADU in generally the same location, but actually slightly closer to the home itself and away from that west property line. Like the existing ADU, the proposed ADU would be 2 stories in size. The first floor would include a 2-stall garage, screen porch, and bathroom and wet bar area. And then the second story would contain living and kitchen areas, a bathroom, and 2 bedrooms. This ADU would have a floor area of 2,375 square feet and a total height of 30 feet, which would be 6 feet taller than that existing home. This diagram, aside from the table showing you those specific square footages and heights I've just noted, also shows the location of the existing home and ADU, and then the proposed ADU in red. As the council is aware, ADUs are conditionally permitted uses in our low-density residential district. And the zoning ordinance outlines two different groups of standards. The first are general standards that get to consistency with the intent of the ordinance and the impact that an ADU may have on public facilities, public infrastructure. And then the second group of standards, 20-plus standards, really relate to structure, location, and design. In general, and in reading through the Planning Commission report, you noted, I hope that this proposed ADU generally meets many of those standards. However, it doesn't meet two specific standards. Those being, the ordinance limits total size of an ADU to 1,000 square feet or 35% of the floor area of the principal home, whichever is less. And the ordinance also limits the height to the highest point of the principal dwelling. The ordinance does go on to say that the council may approve a larger building or a taller building if the structure would not result in adverse impacts on neighboring properties. In the opinion of staff, that may is really important, because if the council feels that the size and height of the proposed structure is reasonable and there's no adverse impacts, you could approve it. Alternatively, if the council feels the height and size are not reasonable, you do not have to approve those upper or go beyonds, as it were, regardless of whether there's site impacts. Really, there's no specific check boxes for the council in this area of approve or deny these larger areas or larger heights. Some of you will remember that when we looked at the ADU ordinance back in 2021, these specific standards were added, and the intent was really to ensure that accessory dwelling units are just that they're accessory both visually and in terms of use to the principal structures. So in the opinion of staff, this proposed ADU is quite attractive. It's been attractively designed. It's further from the property line. We understand the desires of the applicant to include those various components, the garage, the screen porch, the wet bar. They have a nice pool and lawn area, so we do understand those desires. However, it's also our opinion that the ADU is not reasonable because it doesn't meet the intent of an accessory dwelling unit. It would be over half the size of the existing floor area of the existing home, and it would be taller than the existing home. And we do recognize that the 1941 home is modest in height and size, but we don't find that to be a justification for a larger ADU. Rather, we find the opposite, suggesting that this ADU is simply not in scale with that primary structure. If approved, this ADU would be the largest new build in our community. I would note, and it was noted in your report, that we did approve, the council did approve a larger percentage ADU. We approved almost a 70% ADU. That was for the conversion of an existing structure, so an existing detached garage that was converted to an ADU. We have approved ADUs that are over 1,000 square feet or over 35% of the primary structure, but we've never approved something that is both, when this application certainly would be. Applications get submitted, or staff has conversations with applicants frequently about ADUs that do exceed both of those. Those cases don't come before the council because we've been able to work with the applicant to redesign so that either they're under both or they're just exceeding either the square footage or the percentage. In summary then, staff finds that this specific proposal does not meet the intent of the ordinance, and eliminating some of the components of this building would result in accessory dwelling unit that is better scaled to the principal structure. The Planning Commission considered the proposal at its, I think, March 26th meeting, and did concur with staff's recommendation, recommending that this body deny the project. And so with that, I would turn it back to the council and Mayor Schack.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Council, any questions for staff? Councilmember Foster Bolton.
Is this AR ADUs coming up at all in the zoning rewrite?
Ms. Thomas?
Is there going to be any?
Mayor Shack and Councilmember Foster Bolton, yes. One of the things that we are considering in the zoning ordinance rewrite is ADUs and looking at all of these standards, looking at whether they may be primary and permitted uses. I shouldn't say primary, permitted uses or conditionally permitted uses. All of those things are being discussed by our work groups at this time.
And can I ask another one? And that includes the size, is that correct? Like in the...
Mayor Shack and Councilmember Foster Bolton, I don't know about that specifically off the top of my head.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Foster Bolton, that is not something the council has provided clear direction on because you have just updated it 5 years ago. And you've had a long-standing history of the existing ADUs and existing housing. So you haven't kind of had a conversation like that. There has been administrative, like Ms. Thomas has described to you, administratively making these easier. If you meet the ordinance, here we go, rather than going through a public hearing process. But nothing has delved into a size conversation because you did spend, well, the council at the time spent a lot of time deciding what those parameters should be. So,
Council, other questions? Councilmember Romali.
Thank you, Mayor. I just brought this up with City Manager Funk this morning, and this may not be apropos for this one, but were there any discussions with applicant about possibly rezoning to an R2? And would that make any difference here?
Ms. Thomas.
Mayor Shack and Councilmember Romali, I can answer that in two ways. First, I don't believe that Senior Planner Drew Ingvelson, I apologize, Mr. Funk, that he had conversations about rezoning. So I think the answer is no. I'm not sure that rezoning to R2 would work in this specific case. One, it may be considered spot zoning because it is just a property in the middle of a bunch of other R1 properties. I believe, and I can take a look at the code, I also believe that R2 is for attached product, and so you would have a twin home or a duplex. I'm not sure on that, and I can take a look.
Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. There was some discussion this morning between me and the city manager, Mr. Funk, about subdividing. But as I understand it, there's a pool and the lot line would be in the middle of the pool, making it not terribly practical. Am I understanding that correctly?
Ms. Thomas.
Mayor and Councilmember Calvert, that is my understanding of where the pool is located. This site actually used to be two properties. It was combined at one time. So yeah, we may have a setback issue there.
Thank you.
Other questions? Otherwise, I'll invite the applicant to come up and share anything you'd like us to know. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Great. Hey, thanks for pulling that up. Hi, it's Kevin Francis. I'm the resident and owner at 15815 Minnetonka Boulevard. Mayor, City Council, women, it's nice to see you all again. You've gotten the detailed background. I appreciate Ms. Thomas taking you all through it. I'll just give you a little bit of our rationale for why we're approaching you today for the conditional use permit. We've lived in our house for 17 years. The existing ADU on the property predates us. Rather than invest in an aging structure, we believe it makes more sense to replace that structure while also addressing two additional needs on the property. The first need is additional garage space, and I appreciate the background on kind of the math of this. What's ironic about the math of this is our garage is very small. That creates the math problem when you look at how much, forgetting the term now, but the existing structure space. And what we're doing by adding the additional structure is adding the garage space that's needed for kind of the house of our size and the family that we've got. And then just secondly, since adding a pool, an outdoor dining area and recombining the lots, we've made use of that space, and we'd like to have additional space in the ADU for that purpose. Because these functions are combined, the new ADU, a garage, and a screened porch, we're proposing to do that singularly rather than in three different buildings, which we believe suits the neighborhood better, but is creating kind of the problem that was delineated earlier. So while the structure is larger than a conformance path, we believe the city code allows the council to approve this larger ADU when the additional size does not result in undue adverse impacts to the neighboring properties. So we've had three determinations for considering that as the council. The lot size is first, the placement relative to neighboring homes, and screening. These are the benchmarks that are being called as paramount in making this determination, which we believe we've met that bar. The biggest thing that we've done together with our neighbors and friends is making sure that there isn't any problem with the neighbors with regards to this ADU. So we demonstrated that our project meets and exceeds the criteria outlined in this consideration, and additionally has the support of the neighbors. So the three criteria I would look to you to evaluate tonight in making your decision is the lot size. First, our property is 1.35 acres. It's 2.5 times the minimum required for an R1 lot in Minnetonka and nearly twice the citywide average lot size. It's also a double frontage lot. As was mentioned earlier, this provides the substantial space to accommodate a larger structure. Second, in the placement of distance, as you're looking at here on the map, the closest neighboring structure is 128 feet away. The next closest is 162 feet away. To the west, which you just reviewed earlier, the planned Tonka Flats development range from 237 to 300 feet away. These are significant separations. And third, on the screening front, 81% of our property perimeter is already screened by mature trees and vegetation, and we are proposing additional screening as part of this project. This new structure will actually improve setback conditions to the west property line compared to the existing building and will be less visible overall than the existing ADU. And just to underline again, there have been no negative comments submitted to the city regarding this project. In contrast, there are 4 letters of support from our friends and neighbors, including from the property owner directly to our west, who's the neighbor most impacted, who supports the project but views it as a positive for his development that you reviewed earlier tonight. So we believe the criteria outlined in the code have been satisfied. What I would say additionally is, just to look at this from your side of the house, I understand there's some hesitation in going against the recommendations of the planning department and commission. However, it's important to recognize that the planning department does not have a mechanism within the code to weigh factors like lot size, distance, and screening when a project exceeds the conformance path. Their recommendation is therefore constrained. The council, however, is explicitly empowered by the code to consider these additional factors and determine whether a larger structure creates an adverse impact. Even with the planning commission discussion, several comments directly support the standard outlined in the ordinance. For example, Commissioner Waterman noted that this is a unique, large property and the proposal would not create undue impact with meaningful neighbor support. Commissioner Minion stated that the proposal would have no adverse impact on the neighborhood. These are precisely the considerations the code directs you to evaluate and that only you as the council are empowered to consider. There was also concern about precedent. In that regard, I would emphasize how unique this property is. It is, again, 2.7 times the minimum lot size for Minnetonka, has the double frontage, exceeds trunk road setbacks by 3 times and non-trunk road setbacks by 5 times the minimum, and maintains unusually large distances from neighboring structures. Combined with existing screening and the absence of any neighborhood opposition, this creates a very high bar that few, if any, future applicants would be able to meet. Approval of this project would not be based solely on achieving one of those conditions, but on the totality of conditions that make this property a candidate for a larger ADU and that any future project would need to be considered against. And finally, it's worth noting that the standard conformance path accessible to the planning department does not evaluate adverse impact. A smaller code-compliant ADU could still negatively affect neighbors and be approved simply because it meets size limits. In contrast, our proposal exceeds size limits, but has demonstrated through both objective data and the neighbor feedback that it creates no adverse impact, which is explicitly what the code requires the council to evaluate in making approval determination. When considering a larger ADU, I ask the code does not ask how much bigger than a conforming structure is it. It asks, does this ADU negatively affect neighboring properties? And based on the factors I've delineated here, the lot size, distance, screening, and neighborhood feedback, the answer in this case is that it does not. For these reasons, we respectfully request your approval for this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for this applicant? Go ahead, Councilmember Foster.
So, the staff was talking about how they, tried to work with you to decrease the floor area ratio or whatever that's called. And is that because you needed the garage? Is that what you said?
Yes, Councilwoman, it is the garage that is causing the variance. And just to tell you about more of the use of the ADU and why I believe it would be incremental to the city stock, it's the living space above that creates kind of the alternate dwelling unit aspect of it, where you can have multi-generational living, et cetera. But the two-car garage that we need underneath it, it's the additive of those two that's creating the issue.
All right, you can take a seat and we might have you back up if we have any more questions, but thank you very much. All right, Council. Any other questions for staff? Otherwise, let's start discussing this. Councilmember Wilburn.
I guess maybe I should have said it before you said. I'm just trying to figure out for the screening issue, like, so from the road, can you see the accessory dwelling unit next to the house and see the size difference? Or I'm just wondering how apparent it would be that it's a taller building that's supposed to be an accessory building.
Ms. Thomas, do you have any insight on that?
Mayor and Councilmember Foster Bolton, we did have some photos.
Planning
Oh,
Commission.
Wilburn, I apologize. Oh, goodness. We did have some photos in the Planning Commission report. Let me find that. I think that the property is set back quite a bit from Minnetonka Boulevard. I suppose each person has a different sense of distance that we can perceive. I can't perceive, a foot. I'm 5 feet. I always think, is it one of me or two of me as I measure things? I think that the applicant has also suggested that they would be willing to do some plantings in front of the building, so between this property and Minnetonka Boulevard.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, it's down to us. Don't everybody so excited to speak today. This is what happened to our council over the break. All right. Councilmember Foster Bolton.
I guess I am inclined to approve this ADU because I guess I know that the code was changed just in 2021, but I wasn't here. And so when we talk about the intent, and so the intent of an ADU is that it is an accessory. And that definition alone confuses me, like a little bit. No, it doesn't. I know what it means, but I want to know, why is that important? That it looks like an accessory.
What? Staff
I
can
guess
answer that?
no. I mean, because
wasn't trying to
it was
be-
us, right? That we that kind of decided that, and so that's what I'm struggling with right now, because I don't see that as an issue, and I don't think it's a. I'm not convinced that it's a reasonable excuse to deny the permit. That alone, because it looks like I saw those pictures of the Planning Commission where I can't tell. It just looks taller, and to me, and no neighbor is complaining. I know that you guys, that the staff is making the determination based on what the council has decided. I'm just saying that I don't see, I'm not convinced.
Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you. So I have door knocked this lovely home, and it is a lovely property with lovely people that live in it. And I fully understand what they're trying to accomplish. I appreciate sort of the combining of the many needs into one structure and trying not to build many different structures. I will also say that the square footage of this ADU is twice that of my home. So I understand it, and I'm reading the supporting information here about the intended use. So there's a full-time home office for someone who lives in a house that's 4 times the size of mine, and wants a separate office space, poolside entertaining, a guest suite for their many friends. So I want to come to some of your parties and be over your house because it sounds like a good time. And I mean, I think in some ways the most compelling sort of argument for was the garage space. I just feel like this is a total slippery slope because of the enormous size of this ADU, and it does kind of contravene the intent of an accessory dwelling unit, because there's somewhere in a 4,500 square foot home there should be plenty of space for an in-home office, even with 2 kids in the house. And so I personally am not convinced that it needs to be that big. And it's not just the height, it's just the general size. The mitigating circumstance of sort of having like a pool house / garage / guest home sort of makes sense to me, but I'm just not personally, as much as it pains me, because I do understand what they're trying to do. I do think it just kind of contradicts the whole intent of an ADU.
I'll just briefly speak to the issue of kind of the accessory dwelling unit question. I mean, I think it's important to remember that one of the things that we don't want accessory dwelling units to do is to act as a de facto kind of subdivision of a property, allowing residents to build a second home on a property that would create kind of a different zoning feel. So so that I think goes to the, to the question of Councilmember Foster Bolton. I'm challenged here because I'm looking at this lot it's large. It could support 2 separate homes. It does make, I mean, it makes sense. You see, I will say that the applicant told a very compelling story. And so that's, you know, the challenge that I have. I wish there was something here. I wish it wasn't heightened, or it wasn't such a high threshold above on the square footage, or if there was something that we could kind of say, because I am challenged on the precedent piece of this, because we're building kind of a, you know, a fully autonomous second home on the property, which is, you know, whether I agree with that as a principle, I think is a zoning question versus a question about this application with the ordinance that we have. And so I'm very, very torn, and, you know, I'd be interested to hear from my colleagues on this, because everything about this home, everything about it, the people in it, I mean, I want to go there. I was there this summer and I wanted to join the party. And so I want to approve this, but the better part, the rational part of me is saying we have to be careful. So I'm willing to hear from my colleagues. Councilmember Romali.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of in the same position as both of you. I said I also raised 2 children in a 1,600 square foot cottage, but that's neither here nor there. But what I am worried about, besides the precedent, because so many properties have unique attributes, we also have, I'm worried about the fairness, because I believe it was last year or the year before, we denied somebody a garage because he had like a vintage car collection that he had inherited from his father. And, you know, we denied that, even though it was fully screened from the neighbors, it wasn't visible from the road, all of these things. And I just don't know what that says about this council if we've done that so recently and we're in the middle of a zoning rewrite. I personally would say maybe it's worth, and I brought this up with City Manager Funk today, that it may well be worth considering or relooking at our ADU standards in the zoning rewrite, especially given our goals in terms of housing. So far, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of our ADUs being used as housing, which I think, or as rental housing or anything else, is a way to kind of increase housing supply in our community. And I would love to see that maybe change, and maybe doing that can here. But, you know, if it wasn't both, that's, you know, that's what's really hard. I could see, you know, either, to me, there's kind of like 3 things you could do. Is you could, you know, go down from 2 bedrooms to 1 bedroom and do a carport, or you could, you know, do it on 1 level and have greater, you know, square footage, or you can somehow dig into the hill so you're dropping. You know, there are other things that you can do, and I realize for financial reasons I may not be as appealing. However, this is a hard, very hard, and I agree with Commissioner Minion, who brought this up at the Planning Commission, that this was just an extremely difficult. I've been wrestling with it all weekend. So I'm right now more inclined to say no, which really pains me. But you know, I'm willing to listen to my fellow council members and, you know, see what they have to say as well.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Yeah, I have all similar thoughts to the other council members have already spoken. And I didn't ask this question. I've been frantically scrolling through my packet to find the floor plan for the existing primary home, because I'm trying to think about that definition of what is an accessory dwelling. And we talk about it has to be subordinate to the primary structure. And I think that that can be independent of the size compared to other houses in Minnetonka. I think that's maybe irrelevant whether it's bigger than other houses, but is it subordinate to the main structure? And I think even if it's taller, it could be subordinate. Even if it's wider, you know, it could be subordinate. And so that's where I was looking through the floor plans, and in this accessory dwelling unit, it's 2 11 by 11 bedrooms, which is a pretty modest size bedroom, whereas in the primary structure, they're 19 by 19 feet or larger bedrooms, quite a lot of huge spaces in that house. And so I think if I consider just the size of the spaces in the house, the ADU here is clearly accessory, I would say, to the primary structure. But I do hear the point that I think it was you, Mayor, that said it feels like a fully autonomous home on the same site, and it does feel a little bit like a zoning issue almost. But given the size of the lot, the distance from other homes, the screening with the trees, the setbacks, even the support of the neighbors, I feel like it wouldn't really change the character of the neighborhood in this particular site to have just an extra 4, I don't remember exactly how many feet taller it is than the existing building. So those are my thoughts.
Councilmember Wilburn.
Yeah, I don't know that I have that much more to add. I will say, I don't know that, like, an ADU, in my mind anyway, can be autonomous. We've approved ADUs that are autonomous. They're just smaller than the other structure. I'm inclined to lean towards accepting this proposal for the reasons that Councilmember Maxwell has shared. And I get, it makes me a little uncomfortable. I know it's our job to determine if it's an accessory dwelling unit. It makes me uncomfortable to get down into, well, you don't need that or you don't need this. That I don't think, that's just, I don't think that's part of my job. It's to determine if you need the things that you want to put in the unit, as long as they're meet code and aren't illegal. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I am. I think it's still an accessory, even though I certainly understand the caution about setting precedent and going over both square footage and height. That is a concern to me as well. That's the only reason why I'm not 100% saying, yes, let's go ahead and approve this, but I am leaning that way.
Go ahead, Councilmember Foster Bolton.
And the dwelling that was denied that Councilmember Romali spoke of, I wasn't on the council then. It was right before I got on the council.
No, we were on here.
No, we weren't.
Yes, we were.
He's my neighbor, and I know we weren't on the council. No, because
I think you're thinking of a different one.
I'm talking about the one on. Yeah, no, with the
On Orchard.
Yeah, I'd like to find out for sure because I was in the room. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, Councilmember Calvert.
So one of the things I think about, and I appreciate Councilmember O'Malley bringing up that garage, is I think about like things that were sort of pre-zoning, and when we make exceptions and sort of our reputation for being sort of a well-planned community, and this suits the purpose for this family, but to put a structure of that size next to that house where it's going, I don't know if that's like well planned. It suits the purpose for this one home. As much as I totally sympathize and understand what they're trying to do, and it's very compelling, but I do think about it's a 1.35 acre property, and we're putting this sort of autonomous house right next. Like, to me, it's a zoning and planning conundrum that it's on some on some levels, it makes sense to approve, and there is something that the way the mayor phrased it, to me, there's something that does make me very uncomfortable. It's not just that it's sort of an autonomous home. It's having a fully autonomous home right next to a home without rezoning. So, I mean, just the fact that Councilmember Wilburn I think it was Councilmember Wilburn asked a question about rezoning, and we can't do R2. It's not really R1A, and it's in the middle of an R1 neighborhood. There's something about that just makes me uncomfortable. And when we were talking about the garage, it was the same thing. I love that neighbor. He keeps his home very well. I was very sympathetic about his intentions there, but it just felt like, you know, when the next person buys it, what do they do with it? You know, what do you do with this giant garage in the back? And so it's just these similar sort of planning and zoning, like elements of consistency, so that we do live in a well-planned community and that the intent of the ordinance is followed, so that it is orderly development. And this one feels a little bit disorderly. But it is it's one of the most problematic. I mean, there are a lot of reasons to support it as well, because he's right. You have a garage, you have entertainment space, and you have the accessory dwelling all in one building, instead of having a separate screened-in area and a separate garage and a separate ADU. I appreciate what they're trying to accomplish, but it does make me feel uncomfortable.
All right, so I think people have said what they need to say. So, you know, we've got a recommendation from staff. And so, one way or another, well, in order to, we need 4 votes, one way or another here. So if somebody wants to make a motion, we can make a motion to go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Mayor Shack, I was simply going to note that if the council is inclined to approve this, rather than make a specific motion to approve it, direct staff to come back to you with a resolution with your findings and conditions of approval, as long as that's okay with the city attorney.
So I guess I would start maybe with a motion. If somebody wants to make a motion to adopt the resolution denying, see where we land on that. I mean, is that where we want to go? And then, okay, Councilmember Calvert.
And it pains me to do this because I'm very sympathetic, but I'm going to make the motion to deny, to adopt the resolution denying the conditional use permit for an ADU at 15815 Minnetonka Boulevard.
Do we have a second on that?
It pains me as well, because I like both the people who live there, but if I did that, then I should have approved the garage, and I didn't do that. And I just feel for right now, it's an issue of fairness, and it's also something that I hope that the zoning rewrite will address for the reasons that I previously stated. I hope that this can be reworked, but anyway, I will second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Romali. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
No.
Maxwell?
No.
Wilburn?
No.
Calvert?
Yes.
Romali?
Yes.
Shack?
I did too.
No. So motion fails. So we're going to direct staff to, well, we're going to make a motion to direct staff to prepare a resolution to bring back to our next regular council meeting on April 27th, approving the conditional use permit for an ADU at 15815 Minnetonka Boulevard. So I need somebody to make that motion. Councilmember Wilburn.
So moved.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wilburn and a second by Councilmember Maxwell. Ms. Larson, please call roll.
Foster Bolton?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Wilburn?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Romaili?
No.
Shack?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, so we will bring this back. We won't need to have a full presentation at that point. It's your choice, obviously, if you choose to come or not. Okay, so council, that, boy, we're really earning our dinner tonight. Okay. On to item 15, which is appointments and reappointments. We have none. Item 16, which is adjournment, and take a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Wilburn.
I move adjournment.
And a second. Councilmember Calvert.
A second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wilburn, a second by Councilmember Calvert. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.